Are we all here? Welcome, everyone. I want to open up our time with a little short scripture reading and then prayer. And I want to turn to our host, Kyle, for giving us a little bit of technical guidance, and also turn to Terry Morrison for introduction of our speaker this morning. Obviously, the Valentine Day and the scripture reading comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4 to 7. Love is patient and love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking, and it is not easily angered, and it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, and always hopes, and always preserves. And now these three remain: faith, love, and hope. But the greatest of these is love. Well, each of us has different, the viewpoint in our life, or, the most important principle that runs our life. But love is our important Christian themes. So as we spend our time together with Jomary, her wisdom and her lesson, and the topic is timeless love, nurturing relationships in the golden years. No matter what stage of life you are in, and I am as well. So I hope that we listen to Jomary's lesson, that the light, the love is our guiding light. The patient and kind and preserving as well. So let's pray together and then open up our time. Holy God, your love guide us as we explore the beauty of love in our later years, and bless our time with the guidance of Jomary, and to inspire us and enlighten us today. So may we learn to cherish and nurture relationships with patience, kindness, and love, and now and always. Amen. Okay, Kyle, give us a little bit technical advice as we share our time together.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you guys are having a great Friday. So while Jomary is doing her presentation, I ask that everyone stay muted as much as possible unless you either are called on. I'm understanding that we will be using the chat box throughout our presentation. So if you want to send a direct message to Jomary, click the chat box. And then on the bottom, you'll see everyone. You can click on it and choose the individual you want to speak to, and that all your responses will be sent directly only to that individual. If you send it to everyone, everybody in the group can read the chat. And so that's all I would like to say. And Terry, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Kyle, and thank you, Pastor Jean. Welcome, everybody. I'm Terry Morrison, and it's really nice to see you here today. It is my honor and privilege to introduce Dr. Jomary Bolles to you as our guest presenter. She was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, with the exception of a few years, ages 9 to 12, when her family temporarily moved to Warm Springs, Georgia. And this was significant for two reasons. Number one, she had been a medically fragile child and was repeatedly hospitalized for asthma and severe respiratory infections. And she missed more days of school than she was actually there. So the move to Warm Springs helped her allergies, and also there was improved air quality. And secondly, Warm Springs was known then and is known today as a center for rehabilitation, around the world. So people come from all nations. It's very inclusive, and they have varying physical issues. So while there, lessons of empathy, compassion, and flourishing were woven together into a fabric of a community that was perfectly sized for an inquisitive preteen. Her family then returned to Atlanta, where she went to high school and graduated from Emory University. And while at Emory, she discovered the field of psychology and fell in love with it. At the ripe old age of 21, she hitched a ride to Los Angeles, where she began her Ph.D. studies at UCLA. While in her third year there, she was introduced by a mutual friend to a Stanford computer science student who happens to be Bob Bolles. And their friendship emerged into a romance, a long distance relationship, and eventual marriage, and her move to Palo Alto, where she completed her pre-doctoral training at the VA hospital and also at Stanford Children's Hospital. They had 3 sons then, and so Jomary deferred her postdoctoral training until the youngest entered school. But she did work part-time as a clinical psychology assistant. Her family then joined LAUMC in 1987, and Jomary's postdoctoral studies continued through the Stanford Psychiatry Department and culminated in her licensing and her private clinical practice at the ripe old age of 46. She continues this practice today, and it's interspersed with travel to visit their 3 sons. One lives in New York City, one in DC, and one in Los Angeles. And with that, I welcome Dr. Jomary Bolles. Thank you for being with us today.
It'd be good for me to unmute. Is that good?
That's good.
Many apologies. Something is in the air. This is either going to be wonderful or not. My computer is out. I couldn't get on Bob's computer. I'm on my phone. And I'm not in my office because they're jackhammering in front of my office. So here I am. But I'm so honored to be asked to do this. And I so welcome everybody. Thank you, Terry. I love to talk about love. I really do love, I think a lot. I did a lot of child work and I think a lot about the fact that every expression of love that we give to children grows in their hearts and gets spread all around the world. And every expression of love that we have for a friend or a stranger goes into their heart and gets spread from person to person to person to person. So love to me just is the thing that just grows infinitely. I'm also really thrilled to be talking to a group of elders. I found a quote. I didn't write down the person, and I can't find it online, but I love the quote, so I'm going to share it anyway. People don't see the world with their eyes, they see it with their whole life. And we elders have accumulated more of that life than anyone else. Of all the age cohorts, we are more heterogeneous. We have more perspective. We have the widest range of experiences. We've touched more lives than most other folks on the planet. We're often the only adults who aren't too busy to connect with a child. We've experienced profound connections and devastating losses. And so today we're going to focus on the countless and varied love connections that we form over the course of a rich and full lifetime. I said I was going to put things in chat. I do not know how to do that on my phone. And so I'm hoping that we can, Terry, make available to people my contact information, my email, And if there are things that I can provide for you afterwards that I'm not providing for you now, I'd be really happy to do that. We're going to use as a framework the contemplative stance that Pastor Kathy taught us. And it has 4 steps. Step 1 is show up. Step 2 is pay attention. Step 3 is cooperate with God. And step 4 is release the outcome. And again, I can send you that if you want. And sometime maybe I can see what's in the chat. To show up, we simply connect. Some connections happen for the briefest of moments, maybe randomly. Some, like family connections, seem meant to endure for lifetimes, and most often they do, but at times they become broken. And in these situations, they become some of the most difficult ones that we have to face. At those times, we do very well to look for support. We may turn to clergy or counselors or trusted friends who've learned the gift of listening and connecting. Or we may turn to some of the wonderful books that I hope to share during the course of this presentation. But number 1 is show up. And then step 2 is pay attention. As often as possible, we may want to practice what some people refer to by the mnemonic SLANT, SLANT. So S is sit up, L is lean forward, A is ask questions, N is nod, and T is track or follow the thread of what's being said. So virtually any interaction can become more meaningful and more productive if we cultivate the slant habit of paying attention. Third is what I think is the most complex stage, and that is cooperate with God. To me, this means that every single interaction has the potential to be a God moment. Some of you may be familiar with David Brooks. He's a columnist and is a recent convert to Christianity. And he has a magnificent new book called How to Know a Person, The Art of Seeing Others Deeply and of Being Deeply Seen. He talks about beholding, of finding the holy in everyone, seeing others as precious souls of infinite worth and dignity, and seeing them as Jesus would see them. He says, with eyes that lavish love. On a more down-to-earth note, being a little bit more concrete, he talks about looking at people, quote, like Mr. Rogers looked at children, or like Ted Lasso looks at his team. In chapter after chapter, David Brooks explores all the skills we can cultivate that enable us to cooperate with God as we relate to others. And these are just a whole list of things. He actually he does a great job of listing them. He does less in this book. I'm sure he must be planning 4 or 5 more of going into what these mean, but and how we do them. But they include 1, understanding people and seeing things from their point of view. And that's just, again, that's showing up and paying attention and just really wanting to know a person. He talks about other social skills that we, if we're fortunate and careful and wise, we hone over a lifetime. One that particularly jumped out at me was disagreeing without poisoning relationships. And you may have questions about that, and we may want to talk more about that. I like the way that he puts it, though, because he says what's important, that you want to put the without poisoning relationships at the front. You want to find respectful ways to say, I disagree. And also, right now, here and now, in our family or in our friendship or in our working relationship, it's more important to me to be connected to you than to be right. So finding ways to really value the relationship more. And it's a hard thing because a lot of us have a lot of things right now that we feel extremely strongly about, and we feel that we need to have as many people agree with us as possible. It sometimes feels like the whole future of life as we know it depends on that. And yet we don't have very good ways, most of us, of changing anybody's mind or letting our own minds be changed. So if we can find ways to disagree without poisoning relationships, that's a really important thing. He talks about something that I use in my work a lot, and you know, as a Southern girl, I learned nothing about this growing up, and that is setting boundaries. But also setting boundaries in the least hurtful way. Finding a way to say, you know, this is a boundary for me. One of the things that I actually learned, sort of, it just came to me. I get a lot of inspirations, which is really fun. I was talking to a subcontractor that was helping us with remodeling. And he just came in he got up on the wrong side of the bed, came in with a real attitude, and was very disrespectful in the way he spoke to me. And the inspiration that came to me that I actually think I like was to just say to look at him with a neutral expression, probably not the most kind expression, but not a mean expression or a mean tone of voice, and say, excuse me, nobody talks to me like that. And I found that actually, he kind of was taken aback, and he left, and he came back and he apologized. So it doesn't always work that well. But if we can find a way to set a boundary, to say, this is a boundary for me. I can't let anybody treat me in a way that feels abusive or manipulative or whatever. And we don't have to, this sort of goes back to sort of communication 101. We're doing our best job if we're talking about ourselves rather than using you statements. So, you know, you're being such and such a way, or you're doing this, kind of takes us off track. And if we can stay with ourselves and say, I'm not willing to be treated like that, then I think that's a way of setting a boundary in the least hurtful way. Another thing that David Brooks, and I do really love this book, but another thing that he mentions without going into it at all is knowing how to ask for and to offer forgiveness. And I think that's something that we can cultivate over a lifetime, and maybe many of us have had those experiences to really have to offer a sincere apology. I read a lot about apologies when I was doing this, and you know, there are lots of kind of rules that you really want to say for sure, I really am sorry. And I'm not sorry if I offended you. I'm sorry. You really don't want to go there because that makes it the other person's problem. Or I'm sorry you feel that way. You really want to say, I said something that hurt you, and I will take responsibility for that. And then also being able to offer forgiveness. And maybe we can talk about that a lot. You may have some more insight into it than I do. But, you know, again, what forgiveness is really to me is getting back on track with somebody. This is a side note that I won't go into, but I didn't really, I didn't have much success with trying to, with just getting my kids to say they were sorry. You know, my little kids, we all have really bright children, and really bright children know how to say, I'm sorry, in a way that You're not sorry at all, and it's very clear. So I got in the habit of saying you need to make it right with your brother. It was almost always their brother that they needed to apologize to, and you need to make it right, and you need to get back on track. And I think that's where forgiveness goes for us, with being able to get back into a place of connection. He says hosting gatherings. I want him to write a book about this too. Hosting gatherings where everyone feels embraced. I think we can all think of times that's the case. And I think so often of church being one of those places where the tone is set. We're fortunate at LAUMC to have a community that is very open and accepting and welcoming and embracing. And then the fact that so many of us gather there for that, we also pass that along and embrace others as we spend our time together there. So that's something that we all can make happen. And the final one is really being present for someone who is suffering. And I think that the key word there is presence. Again, it goes back to show up when you know that somebody has suffered a loss or is in a really difficult place. There's probably nothing we can say or do to fix it, but letting the person know that we are there, showing up, being present, maybe sitting with them, listening, sometimes doing things, sometimes we're inspired to do some kind of mission of some sort, certainly bringing food or sending flowers or all of those ways, but the main thing is our presence. And we really want to be able to feel another's pain and let them know that we are there with them. So all of these are tall orders, but at their core, they're simply essential life skills that can be honed over a lifetime. Also think one of our best opportunities to cooperate with God comes when we encounter new people in the grocery store, on a bus, walking in our neighborhood, attending a public event. Again, how do we see the face of God in everyone we meet? And how do we show God's love? By offering respect and openness and positive regard. How do we bring our best selves to just all the people that we meet out in the world? Step 4 is release the outcome. I think about this a lot. It's the step I'm most interested in as a person who makes a living working with family dynamics. In this context, I think releasing the outcome means letting go of the need to control or even the want to control. I think that needing or wanting to control often comes across as judgment, and judgment places us at odds with others. When we're judging, we're putting ourselves at a higher level than others and making our caring conditional on their rising to some level that we're setting. When we let go of judgment, we open ourselves up instead to curiosity. We become better at listening, at asking, how does this person really see things? And we begin to develop an explorer's heart, wanting to know what it's like to be in everybody else's skin. I have the other person that I read from the most in preparing this is Mary Pfeiffer, and her book that I like most is called Another Country, and it's about exploring the lives of elders. And I want to use her words. She says, all the good copers among elders had long histories of relationships with people of all ages. They're tolerant and warm-hearted. They don't get worked up about other people's behaviors. They believe that most people do the best they can. They mind their own business, and they don't have lots of expectations for how others should behave. All of us as elders have seen great suffering, and we respond with compassion and not anger and despair, with kindness. We use our hardships to grow our souls, and our lives have taught us who we really are. We can talk about all kinds of relationships. Terry asked me to talk about love around Valentine's Day, and so of course that suggests that we maybe talk about romantic relationships, and I don't exactly know how to approach that with a group of seniors, because I think in a way we're more diverse in those ways, in the way of romantic relationships, than just about any other way. Many of us have one or more romantic relationships in the course of our lives. Some of those are lasting, and some of those are not. And then, of course, at this stage of life, we deal with loss in a way that we don't so much in our younger ages. So just acknowledging that, my way of showing love and respect is just to acknowledge that we all have our own stories, and that those are very, very tender areas and ways that that we nurture those tender areas throughout our lives, whether a relationship is enduring or whether it has ended or gone on to another realm. I'm noticing that people are posting in the chat, and I appreciate that so much. So people are answering questions. Thank you, Miriam. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, anybody else who's responded in the chat. Second thing I think about when I think about relationships is family. I sort of made an assumption first that that most of us don't still have our parents, but of course we have the memories of our parents and the connections that we had with our parents. And I do have a friend that's almost my age, and her mom is 104. So certainly if we do have parents or aunts and uncles still in our lives, those are relationships that call on us for lots and lots of empathy and patience and dedication. So my heart goes out to people that are dealing with that. We have, we have sisters and brothers, cousins in our own age cohort, and finding ways to connect with them. Every relationship is different. When we have time, maybe we ask ourselves, how do I show a special kind of love to my sister or brother, or to a cousin, and how do I do that if we're close and we have a really nice connection, or how do I do that if there somehow that relationship has been broken? Would there be any way that I could take a step toward offering a repair? One of my favorite things to talk about is the love that we share with friends. And I don't have access to very much from you on chat. So, but I was going to ask you to do this, and we're just going to sort of pretend right now that we're all thinking of three relationships three friendships that we've treasured over a long period of time. And I'm just going to invite you just for fun to write down for each one of those three how many years you've been close to that person. And then add those up. And if we had a way to do it, and I don't have a way to do it, but I don't know what your experience is, because you're probably not on your phones. Most of you are probably on computers and you can see more. But if you're inclined to put that number in the chat, go ahead and do it. And I think what we'll see is we'll see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of connections with friends. And those are just, to me, that's the stuff of life. Those are the things that build our hearts and our spirits and our memory banks. We're blessed to let Carrie put 204. All right, Terry. Multiply something around that times all the people who are gathered here, and we begin to get a sense of how much our lives are woven together through connections, and how that kind of love. I'm seeing 170, 145. This is very cool. Thank you for indulging me in this way. And I'd like to take some questions. I can only see myself and Terry. I don't know how this works. But Terry, is there any way I can take questions? I could definitely
I'm going to let Kyle be in charge of that, because I'm on an iPad and I can only see 9 people. So Kyle or Jean, Pastor Jean.
How may I be of assistance?
Is there any way that I can see people and take their questions? See and hear people and take their questions?
Are you able to click your view to see if you go through like the gallery view versus a speaker view? Otherwise, Terry or I could just call on people who have their hands raised.
Oh, I like that. And
if that would be helpful.
Yes, please.
Kyle, I'll let you do it because you can see everybody. Please.
Okay, sounds good.
Jomary, can you swipe your phone image to the left or right? I sometimes on a phone and I just have to swipe to the left or right and I can see everybody. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do a lot of swiping, but yeah. So if you have a question, unmute yourself and I'd be glad to get your input.
Susie had raised her hand. Susie, do you want to unmute yourself? There you go.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Thank you, Jomary, for sharing this hour with us.
You're welcome.
I love everything you say. It's usually about love, but thank you. I just wanted to commend you for choosing David Brooks' book on how to know a person. I came across that book on YouTube about 6 weeks ago. I wasn't looking for it, but it caught my eye. And I think I was looking about something about swimming technique, and I don't know why he was there, but I clicked on him. And I love him on PBS. I just really appreciate his softness and his ability to communicate in a gentle way. This book on how to know someone, I haven't bought it, but I don't think you need to, because there are about 3 or 4 videos on YouTube that are his interview with that book.
Oh, right. Thank you.
So you don't need to buy it. I was so captivated by his presentation. I went like 4 nights in a row, and every night I would watch it again. I'd watch a different one, because I think for me right now in my life, I want to make sure I'm not missing anything about how do I get to know a friend better, or how do I relate better to a swim student that I have, because communication is everything. Doesn't matter how much you know. It's how do you feel and who are they that you're talking with, and how can you be present? So it's just so inspiring. I just encourage anyone who's interested to just go on YouTube and watch it. But thank you for kind of centering your presentation on David Brooks too, because I'm such a big fan of his. And he, you know, he went through a transformation. He wasn't always, he wrote that book because of a transformation in his life in the last 8 years or so. And he felt that he didn't know how to know people, which he's a journalist. I mean, come on. I think he probably is underrating himself, but it's really.
So we just go to YouTube and look for David Brooks. Is that what we do?
Type in David Brooks and his book will pop up.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And you can see him giving these presentations. That's wonderful. I really appreciate your sharing that.
Thank you.
Anybody else with a question or a comment or a reaction?
This is
Sherry
Ruth,
Durkee.
and I I'm a little slow in answering. I'm not sure this is a question you asked for, but I finally added up the number of years I've known my 3 best friends, and we Zoom regularly these days and things. And the number is 195 years for those 3 women. That shocked me.
Yeah, all the numbers I saw were 150 or above, right, hovering around 150 or, you know, up into the 200s, and we have about 25 people here. So that's a lot of love, a lot of sharing, a lot of connection. And thank you also, Regina, for pointing out that you know, as much as people like me struggle with it, we do have some technology that allows us to be connected to people that we ordinarily would have a harder time being connected to. So we're blessed with Zoom and with other ways to stay in touch. And the fact that we have cell phone programs which are really expensive, but they don't charge by the minute. I came across in one of my readings somebody talking about their elderly parents not wanting to talk to them on the phone because it was too expensive, and they experienced that. If I called my mother, she would pick up the phone and say, "What's wrong?" I'd say, "Nothing. Why? You're calling on daylight hours." So most of us are just kind of on the cusp of remembering when those daylight hours were a really big deal. But we are blessed to have more connections. So you have those 3 friends that you stay in touch with on Zoom, right?
Yes, and we tried to for a while and didn't work until we chose a specific time each week when we would try to make the call and make ourselves available. And then it started working. So yeah, pretty fun. They live over 1,000 miles away now, but we still stay in touch.
I also have a friend who's a senior, and she has 2 sisters close to her age, and they live all over the country, and they exercise together every day.
Oh, fun.
They get a particular exercise tape and they all do it, which I find very admirable, but also sounds a lot of fun.
Jomary?
Yes, Sue.
You know, when COVID started, it was awful. I mean, it was just an awful time. But one of the things that happened for my college friends and I mean, these are people I've known for 62 years. We got on Zoom, and there are 5 of us, and every Saturday morning,
Wow.
we chat for an hour and a half. And I thought, how are we going to think of something to talk about every single week? But you know what? We are going through our lives together, and we are supporting each other and loving each other as good friends from college. And it's something we look forward to every single week. It's been very good.
Thank you for sharing that, Sue. One of the things that I read a book about communicating with seniors, and the author talked about a legacy, and really these stories of the ways that we, the things that have happened to us, the people that have come into our lives, all of the joys, all of the sorrows, they're just woven into a unique tapestry, and the way that we make sense of those and have some peace and perspective and maybe some lessons that we've learned to share, ways to support other people through whatever they're going through, that feels like a real legacy to me. And so,
Yeah.
Jomary, when I was 12, I moved from Palo Alto to Stamford, Connecticut, and connected with some dear friends. And to this day, we are still best of friends. And we all got together for our 50th birthday, met from all over the US, and someone was in Hawaii. And then for our 60th, and then 65th, and then just last year we all met for our 80th. And the group is getting smaller, sadly, but it's just wonderful. So for 68 years, I identified 3 of the friends that are in the group, and we talk regularly. We all text, and we get together, and we're planning our next get together. So it's just very special. And as you said, we've gone through life together and continue to do that. So I just feel so blessed to be able to call them at any point in time and connect with them.
that's awesome, Terry. Thank you.
Judith,
Jomary?
Judith Cruz Mello.
Miriam, do you want to go first?
Well, I was just going to say something small, so that'll probably be okay. I just was aware in so much of what you were saying, Jomary, that these are choices that we make. And we have to remember that however old we are, we have choices.
Thank you, Miriam. Yeah. And I'm very aware, Judith, I'll take just 1 second. And I'm very aware that, we have so many blessings through our church. We've been, those of us who've been really engaged with LAUMC for a long time have had a lot of nurturing of our abilities to connect. I think we learn a lot from our pastors and from each other. And yet I know that I just want to acknowledge that there's some people that really struggle with that. And maybe we can, as our gen2gen group, find ways to make sure that we acknowledge that that's, some people are more extroverted than others. Some people are more comfortable in these big interactions, and just make a space for all the different kinds of people that there are, and all the different kinds of relationships. Judith, what's on your mind?
Well, we were talking about legacies. I wanted to mention a program that maybe some of you know and even are using, called Storyworth.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's for a year, it's about $100 subscription, but they send you a question every week and you answer that. You can go back and edit it and so on, and you can share it with some people even as you're going. But the whole deal is that when you're done at the end of the year, and it can include photographs, by the way, you can upload those, then they publish a very nice looking little book of all of your stories. So it's a great gift to give people both the book that you create and for them to be able to do it too.
Thank you. I think that's an awesome thing. And I very, very selfishly gifted my husband with a subscription. So I haven't been able to get myself to do that much writing, but he's doing it very faithfully. So I can't wait to see his book.
Could I just add a little bit more? One thing, if to encourage you yourself to do it, Jomary, I find that some of the questions I don't resonate with at all. So I'll just put him in a sentence. And then other questions, I really have a lot I want to write and I don't have time at the time. So if it's a week where I don't like the question they provided, then I go back with the time that I have available and answer more fully the questions that I did like.
Great. Thank you. Anybody else with a question or a comment? I'm trying to go through and see. I haven't taken the time yet. Just now I'm kind of having fun going through oh, now I see how I can. So I'm, and what a joy to see all these familiar faces and everybody who's tuned in. I would greet all of you by name, but I'm not going to do that, but please consider yourself greeted by name as I'm enjoying seeing your faces. Anything else that anybody would like to add?
Sherry Durkee.
This is going back to David Brooks when we were talking about ways to see him. There's a program that Kelly Corrigan does on PBS on Fridays. I think it's at 7:30, and it's called Tell Me More. She interviews people and gets more of their story. She asks really wonderful questions, and she did a fabulous interview with David Brooks. They talked quite a bit about the book, but her last 3 questions that she asks people are just really, I think they call it a flash round or quick round. And it's like, give me your instant response. And you get some pretty amazing things from these people. I highly recommend watching it. But if there's a way to go back and catch that, Tell Me More with Kelly Corrigan, it's worth seeing the David Brooks interview.
And PBS is great about archiving all of those things. So you can apparently go on the web to PBS and just look for Kelly Corrigan and see all of the amazing interviews. And thank you, Sherry, for sharing that, because she really, if you talk about somebody who really knows how to connect, who really knows how to see a person and just have so much curiosity and so much insight into helping them actually create that video legacy of who they are at their heart and at their core. Kelly Corrigan does an amazing job. It's called, if you just Google Tell Me More, I think you'll get everything you need to see any of those. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
Well, if no one else has anything, anybody else want to make any more comments or any questions? Well, Jomary, Dr. Jomary,
No.
wish.
No. Jomary is good.
We wish to thank you so much for your wonderful presentation, your insights, your food for thought, and your good resources. And it's just a pleasure. And we all know how to find you. And you're in the directory for email, and she gets overloaded with emails. So maybe text if it's really important. but we really, really appreciate you talking with us today. And I just want everybody to know our next program is March 15th, which is a Friday. It's always the third Friday at 11 o'clock Zoom. And our topic will be AI and artificial intelligence. So we all will get a good education in terms of very simplistically, hopefully, learning all about AI. So please mark your calendars. Jomary, yes?
Yes, so I asked Terry if I could talk just a little bit about my Changemaker project. And it looks like just a few minutes, and so I'm going to do that. Feel free to log off. If are you all finished, Terry? Did you say everything you wanted to say?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Feel free to log off, but I wanted to I have a Changemaker project that's called Just One More, and it's very, very baby stages right now. But I'm honing it, and it's going to be just for it's going to be directed at seniors in the Mountain View Los Altos area. And this doesn't apply to all of us, but I think it applies to a lot of us that I have an expression, hitting the Silicon Valley lottery. And of course, you know, there are some people who just got a job when they were young at a place that had lots of stock options, and that's like really hitting the lottery. But also many of us bought our homes at a time when they were insanely less costly than they are now. And we may have just done our regular 401ks, and they may have turned out better than we ever hoped. And if you're like me and my husband, we both did nonprofit work, and we had 3 kids. So coming along was always a challenge to figure out the budget so that we could get the braces people needed, and the speech therapy, and the club soccer, and all of those things. But then once they were all launched, we looked back and said, you know, we could at this point, we could probably do just one more. So I'm looking at how to do that on all kinds of scales, how to just notice the things we're thankful for, and find ways creatively, work together to creatively find ways to maybe make one more tutoring session for one more kid, or anything on any scale. So if you have an interest in that, would you please email me, and I will take you to lunch, or we will have a party, or we'll get together on Zoom and talk about that. So thank you, Terry, for letting me share that.
Well, special thanks to Jomary for your lesson and wisdom that we shared together. Well, I think I just want to make a last comment, and then we can adjourn our time together. The reminder of the powerful connections that bind us across generations, and also the point that the tapestry of relationships that makes our lives and shaping our community. This is a very important theme to me as well. The God is a communal God as well. So just for your thought, our gen2gen group are remodeling the library for a new place for our adult congregation, especially a gen2gen group and congregational care ministry team. So at some point, we like to rename this library and resource center to a new title. But this is really insightful to me, like tapestry of the beautiful relationships together, something like a weaving or woven together like a fabric or mosaic, something. Think about this, and if you have a good name and title for this as sort of intergenerational hub or place that people can create more relationships in this space. It can be a fellowship place, or it can be a workplace throughout generations together. So something, just ask you to brainstorm some ideas and thoughts for this new name of this place when we really open this place sometime in the later summer. So, but this is really insightful and inspirational to us. Thanks so much, Jomary, again.
Thank you, John. And that's exciting, an exciting project. I didn't know that. So that's
Yeah, yesterday Rick Aronson and Leslie, no, Michael,
Mike.
they came and they helped to paint the wall.
Oh,
So,
wonderful.
and then next week we will get a new floor. So then it'll be more expedite all the speed. So hopefully we can get a new place around summertime. And then definitely we will rename this space fitting our need as well. Just think about some ideas.
Sounds great. Very exciting.
Thank you so much, everyone. I hope that you enjoy this time and have a wonderful day. Go in peace. See you next time.